Mark Beelan from SearchLab. This is Suds Search. We're at Twisted Hippo in Ravenswood Manor, and I'm joined today by Kyle Akerman.
Hey, how are you? Good
to see you. Thanks for doing this. This is a really exciting topic for us. So we're going to be talking about analytics with an analytics expert.
Oh, you're too kind.
And so I wanted to give you a chance just to describe your services and how clients and agencies benefit from it.
Yeah, so I'm kind of unique in that, or I think I'm unique in that I'm a solopreneur, and I work best with other small agencies.
Okay.
I do have a few direct-to-client engagements, but what I do is clients bring me in to help provide analytics and insight to help improve marketing for their different clients. So like what's happening on the website, what's their best traffic sources, what's converting, basically how are they getting ROI out of their marketing? Because a lot of people are spending a lot of time and money on marketing, but they don't know what's working.
Right.
And I think that we can do better than that. And that's where data comes in, and that's where I try to help people.
How often do you start an engagement and it's broken from the beginning? It's not set up right.
Well, and that's a great question. Things aren't always broken.
Yeah.
But before I start doing any analysis, the first thing I do is I do an audit of their setup. Because, we want to avoid garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah, what does that term mean?
So that means
all the time. Yeah.
that basically it means if your input, so if the data I'm looking at is garbage, you're not measuring correctly, and I start doing analysis off that data, it's just going to be garbage analysis. So you might end up spending money on the wrong thing, like maybe doubling down on something that's bad.
Yes.
So the first thing I do is a complete audit of their Google Analytics setup. Identify what's wrong, what needs to be changed, modified, added, etc. We get all of that cleaned up, then we can move on to the actual analysis because we know that the data is clean, we're measuring everything we want to measure, and that's our starting point.
A mutual friend of ours, Andy Crostodina, has this line where he always says, never bring an opinion to a data fight.
Yes.
You must love this line.
Yes, that's a good one. And it's kind of a take off the old, from the Untouchables movie. Right, yeah. If people are not familiar with 1987, never bring a knife to a gunfight.
Right.
But what he's saying is, especially in larger companies, people will argue about, well, we should have this on the homepage, or we should do this kind of marketing, and it's all opinions.
Yes.
But if you're looking at the data and you've shown what works and what doesn't, you can bring your data with your insights into that meeting, and the person with an opinion, they don't have an answer.
That's right.
And that's what we're trying to get to.
I think it's really interesting, your background, because you come from a science background and you work with all these creative types. So we don't have things like, empirical data. You're not used to like a scientific method.
Well,
how did that benefit you?
Just to give you a quick synopsis, I actually have an engineering background. So I had an electrical engineering degree, worked at Motorola for many, many years, then switched over to marketing. And I really liked the analytics side of it. But the engineering background allows me to kind of ask the right questions, think about how to run tests, if you will, how to look at a data set and know like, oh, this is a really small data set. Maybe we shouldn't base all of our answers on that, and just, a little more technical thinking to it, I think.
Yeah, I love that. You mentioned these data sets can be too small to make sense of. How long a period of time or how much data before you can really make a decision, or does that kind of vary?
It varies. I like to give people an idea that, this is kind of some basic statistic stuff. I won't get too geeky, but like if you're flipping a coin, you might, so we all know that it's a 50-50 chance you'll get heads, say. If you flip a coin 10 times, you might get 8 heads. That doesn't mean it's now an 80% chance of getting heads.
That's right.
So if we increase that data set from 10 to like 1,000 coin flips, it's going to be really close to 500.
Right.
So the larger your data set, the closer you're getting to an accurate piece of what it's actually measuring. That's kind of how I think about it.
How often are you coming to clients and saying, I'll save you money, I'll save you time, because I'll be able to let you make better decisions?
I'm still kind of crafting my sales pitch, but there's different ones. One of them is I'll save you money by looking at your data. I'll save you time, I'll improve your ROI. All of those are super valuable, especially for businesses and marketing teams that are small.
Right.
I love working with marketers that are kind of trying to do everything and they're overwhelmed, because I can come in and I can look at the data and see, all right, these 2 things are driving most of your results. Spend your limited time and resources on those, and maybe less on these other, or just ignore them completely.
Yeah.
And people really appreciate that.
And just as a point of setting this up, what kinds of agencies do you work with? Are you?
Well, so usually smaller ones. Like I don't work with like a Digitas or some of those giant corporations, but small to mid-sized agencies. I work well with content marketing agencies, PR agencies, sometimes SEO agencies. I work with one lady that does data analytics, more on the business intelligence side.
Got it.
So she'll use Google Analytics as kind of a foot in the door to get to bigger data sets. So really a lot of different, anybody doing marketing that's selling marketing to a client, I can help them.
Okay. Yeah. And you're at least on your website, you're a Google Analytics expert.
Yeah.
Do you ever get into these tap clicks or KISS metrics, these advanced
There's a lot of
analytics
different
stuff?
tools. So the tools I use primarily are Google Analytics. I use a tool called Hotjar, which is used to kind of see like where clicks are happening on a site, scrolls, that kind of thing. Crazy Egg is another tool.
Kind of heat mapping.
Heat mapping. Yeah, I'll look at people's like their email analytics, maybe their social media analytics. I can definitely teach people how to think about doing analysis, no matter what the tool is, because that's a common skill set across the tools. Now, I'm not involved with, say, like Adobe Analytics or some of these other platforms. I mean, there's probably, I don't know, hundreds of data analytics tools now.
Right.
But a lot of them are measuring the same things, right? They're measuring traffic to your site. How do people find you? What do people do on your site? And then what kind of outcomes do they do? Like what kind of conversions? So
yeah. Well, I wanted to drill into some of the reports at the risk of geeking out a little bit too much.
Sure, let's do it.
Where do you go if you're starting? You have a client, and you get into their analytics. What's the first report you want to go to, and where do your eyes go to just instinctively?
Right. So assuming we've already done an audit, we know everything's clean. When we start the analysis, I like to see where most of their traffic is coming from.
So you're going to go into acquisitions?
Yeah, so if you're familiar with Google Analytics, in the acquisition report, I like to see either the channel breakdown or the source medium. I want to see, is most of their traffic from an organic search? Is it from referrals? How much email do they do? Because I can see right away if their email is tagged correctly or not. Right. And then maybe the next one is landing page. Okay. So I like to see where people are entering the site, because that's the first point of their journey on the website.
I feel like everybody likes acquisitions and behavior are kind of the two.
Well, and so the landing page report, it's in behavior. I like that better than just the page report. Mm-hmm. Because I want to know where people first come in, because that's giving me a lot of info about intent and kind of the path they're taking. So you always want to put your calls to action, what you want people to do on the pages that people are traversing through.
Yes.
So you mentioned Andy Crestodina before. He likes to say, put your billboards on highways.
Right.
The message you want people to see on a highway, not on like a little dirt road that only a few people are
He's so
on.
good with these analogies.
Well, people remember things better, I think, if you have a story or an analogy.
Well, that's great. And then one of the things that we struggle to explain to our clients, so we're going to get into a conversions report. That's really where the rubber meets the road for us. We have to show that we made more money for you than you spent with us. And one of the things that's tricky is attribution modeling. And I always I would love some pointers in explaining this better to my clients and how those models work and what this is all about.
It's really complicated, and we won't solve it in the time we have here. I think I think just being able to show that multiple marketing campaigns can all contribute to a conversion is important for a client. To show that, like, oh, maybe a paid channel and organic traffic work together.
Perhaps it'd be useful just to define attribution modeling for anybody if people don't know what this is.
Yeah, so basically we're trying to figure out what traffic sources are responsible for like a new lead, revenue if you're an e-commerce platform, that kind of thing. So, is it an ad campaign that drove all the traffic that turned into a lead? Was it organic search? Was it email? Did some of them work together? And then if so, how do you divide that credit? Right. So the extremes are, there's attribution called like first touch or first click. So if you click on an ad, the very first thing, and then, I look at pages on your site, and then I come back later through an organic search, and then maybe I come back later on an email and then convert. Which one of those three traffic sources should get credit for the conversion? Right. The first one? So if we're using that model, then it would give the paid. If you're using like last click, then the email would get it all. But those are extremes. Right. So maybe do you give all three? Do you split the credit? So those are just different ways to think about it. How do you weight those different traffic sources? It's
just important to know, I think, with clients, usually we have this thought in our head that they're going to click on the website and they're going to convert, but that's not often how it works. It's a lot of times there's multiple steps.
And especially depending on the product you're selling. If it's like a candy bar or something that doesn't take a lot of thought, it's like an impulse buy, I'll hit the site and I'll buy it. Or maybe a better example is like Amazon. Like there's a book that I want. I go there, I buy it. Done. But if you're selling like, manufacturing equipment.
Right.
Well, that's probably a 5-digit purchase or more. Well, I'm going to visit your site many times to figure out if you're the company that I want to buy this equipment from. Because I'm making a huge purchase, and my butt's on the line if it doesn't work out. So in that case, you're coming back to the site multiple times.
And so knowing this kind of information can have businesses make better marketing decisions, because if you are just in a paid search mindset here, if you are selling candy bars, or you're selling hopefully pretty expensive candy bars, and it's really just get them to the site and they convert quickly, you would want to do a lot of paid search marketing. You'd want to do on the search network. You may really, if you have a lot of touch points, remarketing becomes a lot more appealing, or making sure that you're following up with that person with email marketing or something like that.
There's many ways to stay in front of people, or top of the funnel awareness. Whether it's email or remarketing, and then you have to you consider the costs of that. Like paid advertising can work really well as long as you're staying below. You know what your cost to acquire a customer is. Right. And as long as you stay under that, so you never want to spend $200 to get a $100 sale,
right?
So just some basic ad metrics like that. But it's all of these things work together,
right?
Organic search, paid, email, social, all of these work together.
I know. Are you ever bad news for an agency? Like the social media guy is just like charging a business through the nose, and you have to come in and tell them, like this isn't really working for you?
It could be. If what we see a lot of times is social media doesn't necessarily, organic social media doesn't necessarily drive leads.
Right.
A lot of times it's more top of the funnel things, just awareness. Maybe they drive like signups to a newsletter or something. It can all be useful, but I think sometimes, especially the social media accounts, we find that traffic is not necessarily that valuable.
Yeah.
And so the people that are working on that, sometimes that's a little of a downer for them to hear. I just think the thing that a lot of people or companies need to keep in mind just with their analytics is just, what do you want to know? Like, ask better questions.
I know.
Because they go into any data tool set and then they get overwhelmed, or maybe they look at the wrong things, and a lot of it stems from they're just not asking good questions. If you ask the right question up front, that'll cut out like 80% of the reports. Because there's a lot of noise, especially in Google Analytics. Most people don't need the majority of the reports.
They don't.
So that's how I try to kind of help them, focus on just what you need.
Yeah, that's a great value to add. What does a good analytics experiment look like? Is it? You mentioned asking good questions. What's the best case scenario?
I mean, I guess start with a good question. If you're going to run some kind of a experiment where you're changing something on the site, you got to have something to measure it against.
Okay.
So what's the metric you're going to use? So, maybe you're just looking at a landing page where somebody's filling out a form to become a lead. So that's an easy one. Your metric will be, did I get more form completions? Mm-hmm. But having a clear metric, knowing how long to run the test.
Okay.
Because a lot of times, and that can go into sample size and also length. Because if you run a test of any kind more than maybe 4 weeks,
right,
you'll start getting a lot of other things polluting that data, like maybe changes in the market or changes in your own marketing or other things that are going to provide noise to the data, and you won't necessarily know why you saw changes if you did see changes.
Yeah, I think of seasonality a lot with our small business clients.
Yep, you have to be very careful of seasonality too and take it into account.
Okay.
So in that case, you probably have to compare to the previous year,
right,
data. Yeah,
which isn't always available to you with some of these.
Right. Yeah, I mean, when you're doing analysis, as long as you are aware of the risks you're taking with the analysis, so like with a small sample size, as long as you know the idea of small sample size can have more variance, there's more risk in making big decisions on, almost like a gambler. You know that, okay, the decision I'm taking it's a little more risky because I don't have a ton of data.
Right.
So if you're willing to take that risk, fine.
Yeah.
But just don't go in dumb and think that you have the right, it's like when you go into Vegas, which things have better odds.
Yes, right.
As long as you're aware that this craps bet, I'm going to lose, 99 times out of 100, fine.
Right.
But don't think you have an even chance of winning.
Right.
Terrible bet.
The slot machines, those aren't good.
But they're fun.
They are fun. I think one of the things I really want to get out of you is where do most agencies, small business, people who deal with analytics, where do they commonly mess up? What are the common pitfalls?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. Obviously, in the setup, there can be a number of things. So they might, I'll see 2 versions of a code of the Google Analytics code. So then that means you might be, every time you hit the page, you're double counting your page views.
Right.
Something like that. Not having any goals set up or have goals set up incorrectly. Email not being tagged. So if you don't tag links in your email, the links that go back to your website, those will show up in the direct traffic source, not as email.
Yep.
So those are some of them. And just a very simple one, not looking at their data. I'll ask people, I'll be like, hey, how often do you look at your Google Analytics? Well, I know I have it on my website. I look at it every couple months.
Right.
Well, how do you know what's working? So just trying to change that behavior, I think, is a big one.
That makes perfect sense. There are certifications you can get in analytics.
Yep.
Who should get a Google Analytics certification? Is it worth your while? What is this
I go back and forth on that. So Google, they have a lot of great free training, and then they have a test that you can take to become certified in Google Analytics. They also have one for AdWords and some of their other platforms.
Do they still have it where you can be analytics certified and advanced analytics certified? I can't remember.
They break it up now. I think it's just one. So here's for a while, years ago, I got certified. I did it a couple times. You had to pay for it back then, and then it's only good for a year and a half or something. Now it's free. I got tired of taking it over and over again. also for a while, it wasn't really, the questions weren't that aligned with how you would use it in the real world. It was more like setup questions and limits, how many accounts can you have and how many views. And I think that's changed. But I think it would look good. I think for any marketer that wants to show that they have a knowledge of analytics, I think it's worthwhile to take it. Like I said, Google has free training, so you can just watch their videos and get instructions. And it's probably worth it. There's a lot of other great places. Like I've taken courses from Conversion Excel, digitalmarketer.com. All have really good courses on analytics and other marketing topics. So,
who are sort of the analytics evangelists these days? Like I'm a little out of the loop.
Always Avinash Kushik.
Yeah, he's always been.
He's amazing. His blog. He only writes maybe once or twice a month, but they're in depth, super good posts. He has a newsletter that's really good. Justin Controni, who worked for.
Is he still at Google?
I'm not sure.
He kind of took the mantle from Avinash at Google, I think.
If you're looking at very applied stuff, I mean, even Andy shows a lot, especially with tying in with like SEO and content marketing.
Okay.
The guy, it's not one particular person, but the Conversion Excel blog, they create amazing content around analytics and conversion optimization. So those are a couple different sources that I go to consistently.
All right, terrific. Well, I really think this is an important topic for Suds and Search audience. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
I think being you describe yourself as a data translator.
Yeah,
allows all of us marketers to make better decisions and use our time more wisely. So I wish there were more of you. What do you find that you have? I don't find that you have a lot of competitors. I think they're out there, but a lot of us, so one of the problems I struggle with is I don't create a lot of content for myself, which I need to do a better job of. But I think there's a lot of people, especially like if you look at some of the agencies, like the director of analytics. Yes.
They're not necessarily making content, promoting themselves, but those are some really smart people.
Yes, you're right. Well, what's interesting about you is you can bring. So I think of a director of analytics. That's like a big agency job.
A lot of times,
You're kind of working with agencies like mine or agencies like...
I'm targeting like the next level down. I don't typically like to work with enterprise level companies.
You worked for a Motorola. Why did you not...
Well, I mean, for my marketing. Well, that's part of it is a response to that.
Is that right?
Because once I got out of there, I'm like, I don't know if I like this very corporate
That's interesting.
environment. I like helping kind of that next layer down.
Okay.
These are still very successful companies. Right. They just need help with their data because, again, a lot of times they don't have a big marketing team. And if they're not using an outside firm to supplement, their analytics or any other marketing, they're trying to do it all themselves. And for some reason, the thing that always gets left behind is analytics. And I'm like, that's the thing that can help you the most.
I know.
And so that's where I really try to help people. I think every marketer needs to have that as part of their skill set. Like you don't have to be an expert.
Right.
You don't have to be fluent in analytics, but you should at least be conversational.
Yeah. You can't suck. Yeah.
Don't be terrible at analytics.
Right. Bounce rate is everybody's favorite metric. All my clients' favorite metric. Right. I feel like it is a tad misunderstood.
It is very misunderstood.
Can you tell us what bounce rate is and why it is misunderstood?
So where do I begin from? So typically it means somebody visits a site and it's a one-hit visit and then they leave. Now a hit can get a little complicated. It could just mean like a page view, or it might mean like they watched a video or something.
Right.
I think a lot of times why bounce rate is misunderstood is because people don't give it any context. So they say, what's the bounce rate of my website? That is a completely meaningless metric. Bounce rate is per page on your website.
Right.
That's what you need to be looking at.
Right.
Or by traffic source. So like you might find that your paid traffic has a very high bounce rate versus your organic traffic.
I can think of another one. We had a client who, by browser type, so on their mobile device,
right,
very high on desktop,
right. And to kind of an analogy that might work for people is think of like a book. So if I open up a book that and I just look at that page, and then I close it, that's considered a bounce.
Right.
Now, if I open up the book and then maybe I turn and go to a second page and a third page and then I close it, that's not a bounce.
Not a bounce. Right.
So that's the most kind of simplified version. So depending on the type of site you have, you may, you probably want a lower bounce rate, but sometimes it's okay. So if you have a blog,
yep. That's what I was gonna say.
A lot of times, blogs have very high bounce rates because somebody goes there, they read that page, it might have been awesome,
they answered
and then
the
they
question.
leave.
Right?
Yeah, they got what they wanted and they left. So in that case, a high bounce rate is okay.
Right.
So you have to have context. What's the page, the bounce rate of the landing page you're looking at, the traffic source, and then what kind of page or website is it? So that's where I think people need to be more informed about what does bounce rate really mean.
Yeah. They have this other metric, exit percentage, which could also be useful. Like
and that's, people
if you have
get
kind of a
confused.
funnel, that it's like, why do they keep falling off? And
yeah, and sometimes that one's misunderstood. Exit, I think it's important if you have kind of like defined steps or like you use the word funnel. So, if I'm leaving on like the third step of that funnel, like maybe like before I make a purchase, then that could be a problem. But if I'm reading a couple blogs and then I look at your homepage and then I exit, that's normal, okay.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, I have to leave your website somewhere. So I think sometimes people can, not completely understand exit rate also.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I want to finish with something. You are, in addition to being one of Chicago's best analytics experts, you are one of Chicago's best DJs. What sort of music do you DJ? And
so I should make it clear. So I'm a radio DJ.
Right.
I'm not in clubs spinning tunes.
Exactly.
So
I like how we both had the like we know what we're doing.
The international symbol for DJing. So I volunteer at a radio station here in town, Chirp Radio, 107.1 FM, chirpradio.org. And I've been doing that for about 7-8 years. I'm on Wednesday nights, 6 to 8 p.m. So I was just on last night doing my show. And I have to do a wide variety of music. So there's a lot of local Chicago bands that we play.
Yeah.
We play many genres, many time periods. Kind of the overarching principle is we just stay away from music that you can easily hear like everywhere else, like on commercial radio or on TV or movies or so kind of like the best college station you could think of. I mean, we're better than that, but it's like just really it's for people that really get into music. And the station is coming up on its 10-year anniversary of being a broadcasting.
It sounds awesome.
It's a lot of fun. It's in the neighborhood here. It's over in North Center. And it's actually, I find this kind of funny. The station is on Rockwell.
Very nice.
So,
you talk about branding. There we go. Smart. Right.
Yeah, I think it was purely by coincidence.
Well, I think this is a good time to wrap it up. This has been a really good conversation. All right. I really love this topic. Hopefully we can have you on again.
I can talk about this stuff all the time. Yeah.
And tune in to hear him if you're in Chicago on Chirp Radio. We've got a plug there. And I want to thank the Twisted Hippo for having us and Selby Media for your videography. Again, Kyle, any further comments or thank you for coming on?
Well, thanks for having me here. And what would be, like I said, I think every marketer should try to get better at learning analytics.
I agree.
And if you're not sure where to learn that stuff, reach out to me. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, Kyle Akerman in Chicago, and I can point you to some resources. Yeah, that's probably good. What's the best? Are you on Twitter, LinkedIn? LinkedIn, your website? Or I'm on Twitter. It's just my name, Kyle Akerman, KyleAkerman. Okay, terrific. Yeah.
All right, well, let's do this. I need another beer. Why don't we go see if the brewmasters agreed to join us?
Yeah, totally.
And let's join me at the bar.
All right.
All right, we're back at Twisted Hippo. This is Karl, the brewmaster.
Welcome.
Karl, can you tell us a little bit about the beers you brew here at Twisted Hippo?
Sure. Here at Twisted Hippo, it's kind of in the name. We tend to make beers that are a little bit different than what everybody else is making, hence the twisted part. So we tend to take a style and then we will make a little bit of a twist on it, do something a little bit different. Our approach is, why make the same beers that everybody else is making? Let's have our own unique perspective and voice in the beers that we're putting out.
All right, cool. And what are what beers are we drinking, and what are some of your most popular ones here?
So right now we're drinking the Strawberry Rapture, which is a strawberry lemon blonde.
Okay.
Cheers. So we just released this beer 2 days ago on Tuesday, but we also have several other, interesting beers on. We constantly have a beer, Plumpus, which is an Italian plum saison. We have Bee's Sleeves, which is a common style beer brewed with honey. So you get a nice honey aroma on it, but it's not overwhelmingly sweet. It's just kind of a really cool honey aroma. Right now we have a beer on that was a collaboration we did with our friends at Maplewood called Finger Biscuits. That is a tiramisu white stout.
No
So you get, kind of all those tiramisu flavors. You get the coffee liqueur. You get the, the really kind of nice cakey notes in there as well. So it's really kind of an interesting, really cool beer. So like I said, we tend to do things that are, a little bit different than what you see in most of the beers that are out there.
Terrific. And tell us a little bit. You've opened here in January, is that right?
Yes. So we opened here at our tap room in January. So we've been open about 6 months now. Before that, we were gypsy brewing. So we were brewing out of friends' breweries on a very small scale. So we had limited beer available in the Chicago market and, doing self-distribution. And now that we have our own place, we're able to do a wider variety of beers. And we've also introduced beers that are more widely available into distribution as well.
The tap room is really beautiful. Tell us a little bit about what went into the design here.
So we had some friends, some local architects called Could Be Architecture, who met with us, sat down, took all of our crazy ideas, and helped us to formulate something that was really cool and really interesting, and showcased sort of the unique perspective that we have and the personality that we have with our beers. We did not want to just open another standard tap room that looks like a lot of the other tap rooms. We wanted something that matched the personality of who we are.
This is incredibly cool, and thank you so much for hosting us. And
of course,
we had a great time here, and I think let's finish our beers here. We'll do a final cheers. Thanks again, Karl, and Twisted Hippo.
Cheers, guys.